All right, well, welcome everybody. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
And
Hello, everybody.
I just wanted to welcome everybody. We are having our practice and education meeting. It's April 5th, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're going to first go ahead and take a roll call. So I'll call roll. Dr. Stacy Bragg, Dr. Garcia,
Present.
Dr. Wong, present. So all three of us are here. We have quorum. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 2, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. Mr. Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A to see if we have any public comments.
Absolutely.
And President Wong and moderator, for this item and the next item, I will just jump in as I'm doing right now. I am the executive officer. I am in the publicly accessible location that was noted on the meeting agenda for today. There are no members of the public located where I am.
Right. Do I need to ask if Dr. Garcia and Dr. Bragg also have members of the public with them? Or should I ask that?
I'll defer to counsel for that question.
No, you do not. Since under this current procedure, they are by themselves.
Okay.
And we do not need to disclose their locations.
All right, so then we will now move on. Thank you, Mr. Pruden. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 2, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. Mr. Pruden, you said that you don't have anyone in the meeting room with you. Do you have anybody now?
No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for public comment, please.
Absolutely. We are open for public comment on items not on the agenda. If you are participating via WebEx, now is the time to raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. Participants will be given 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. We're going to take just a couple more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment.
I don't know if this is where
Yeah,
I can chime in.
Go ahead, Member Bragg. I was going to kind of wait for the members of the public, but I don't know if we have any that are going to chime in. We forgot, if you will, it's safe to say that, to put a future agenda items on this agenda. So any members of the committee who may have an item that they want to talk about that's not listed on the agenda, this item would be the appropriate place to do so. So Member Bragg, if you have something you'd like to bring forward, now would be the time.
I just had 2 items that I thought might be good for future discussion. The first would be looking at updating the language for the CE classifications, where ours would mirror the COPE definitions to make it a little less ambiguous. I think, I'm not sure, probably staff might have more input on how many inquiries they get about what category a certain course falls under, if it's just general or the TPA. So that was one. And then the second one was looking at the dental board beginning January 1 last year. They allowed for dentists who provide direct patient care as an unpaid volunteer at a free public health care event or a nonprofit community health care clinic. They can earn up to 3 hours of continuing education at a rate of 1 unit per hour. So I was wondering if we could also explore such legislation. And I have it's CCR Title 16, subsection 1017. Or section 1017, subsection I.
Council, is it okay if I opine on the first one to share information regarding what this committee has already done on that topic, or am I not able to do that?
We should limit this conversation to the extent of like whether or not we should be putting it on to a future agenda item. To the extent that your response is clarifying that we've already done something and we might not need to put onto a future agenda item, I'm okay with that, but I would not do a full summary.
That's very helpful, and that's exactly what I was going to state. If I'm understanding, Member Bragg, your first future agenda item That's an item that we have talked about at least once, if not twice, in this committee before, and I'd be happy to follow up after the meeting with that information. We have talked about aligning our standards with COPE standards, and we've specifically talked about what New Jersey has out there. So I think that is something that we've already dealt with at this committee prior to you being a member of it. The second item, however, would be brand new, and we can explore discussing that at a future agenda.
All right, thank you. So, and I'm assuming, Mr. Moderator, that we have no comments from the public on the Q&A.
We still have no requests from the public for comment.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Bragg. And let's go ahead and close the Q&A now, which puts us on to item number 3, discussion and possible approval of the February 12th, 2024 PEC meeting minutes. So those were attached in the materials. Dr. Garcia, Dr. Bragg, do you have any comments about the minutes from the February 12th meeting?
No comments.
Yeah, nothing to add.
All right. Mr. Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for a public comment on the meeting minutes.
Before we open up the Q&A, let's entertain a motion.
Oh, okay. Could I get a motion then, please, before we open up the Q&A, to approve the minutes from the February 12th, 2024 PEC meeting?
Move to approve the draft minutes from the February 12th, 2024 Practice Education Committee meeting.
I second that motion.
So I have a motion from Dr. Bragg, a second from Dr. Garcia. Now, if we could open up the Q&A for our public comment, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Before we go to the telephone, I'll just again jump in. Sorry, David. Greg Pruden, Executive Officer. I am located in the publicly accessible location noticed on the agenda for today's meeting. There are no members of the public located where I am.
Thank you.
You read my mind. And now we are accepting public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for comment on the meeting minutes or the motion. Seeing no requests, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. So let's go ahead and we will have a vote to pass the minutes from our February 12th, 2024 meeting. Dr. Bragg, how do you vote? Dr. Garcia?
Aye.
And Dr. Wong, I vote aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we are now going to move on to item number 4, which is discussion and possible action on continuing education courses. And we have 4 different subsections, 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D. Do Dr. Bragg or Dr. Garcia, do you guys have any comments on any of the items that are currently on the agenda?
I only had a question on item 4DI, where on the cover sheet, I believe it was submitted as ocular disease, and then there was a question about general optometry.
For the TPMG, oculofacial and reconstructive surgery?
Yes.
4D.
And as Member Garcia, I also had the same question. I would think that would be under general optometry of the
Yeah.
2.
I think I agree. So, Greg, do we just recategorize?
It is this committee's purview in determining whether to approve or not a CE course to also determine what category that course would apply for.
Okay. So are we going to move that we think that item 4DI is general and non-ocular disease?
That's my recommendation. I'm not sure what you both think.
Looking through the slides, I felt there was enough ocular disease about lid lesions. So that was, and that's where I, with the COP classification, it might come in.
Right, yeah, because she
Um,
does talk about like periocular lesions, there's actinic keratosis, melanomas, benign eyelid lesions.
I could be convinced either way. There was one other one. It was, since we're discussing them, 4B4.
Yeah, that one I wanted us to have a discussion on. So let's finish this one first. You know, there's a fair amount of lesions, I think. I mean, I could be convinced to categorize this one or to continue the categorization as ocular disease for the Kaiser Permanente 4DI. Do you guys want to, what are we thinking?
I'll vote for disease.
Okay. And Dr. Bragg, how are you voting for?
a disease too. I was just because on that cover sheet it had the question, and then looking through it, I thought it leaned a little more towards disease.
So I think we can categorize 4DI as ocular disease. The TPMG Oculofacial and Reconstructive Surgery Cosmetic Service is now being categorized as ocular disease. And I agree with Dr. Garcia. The other one the one that I wanted to talk about was item number 4B, 4 as in boy, 4.
A quick point
Topic
of order.
four.
Did you guys want to move to classify it as that?
Oh, yes. So for item 4DI, that one is going to be classified as ocular disease because it on the cover sheet they put ocular disease or general optometry, so they weren't sure which one to submit it as, and we as a group have decided that it falls under the category of ocular disease.
Council, are you seeking that clarification because we need a motion specific for 4DI? Is that what you're
I
thinking?
mean, I'm thinking if we're doing a specific, I think if we're classifying something specifically there, not just accepting the application as it is, we should probably motion to do it. Is my
Yeah, I'm
thoughts.
thinking the same.
And I think it'd be more straightforward to motion as we go along and then accept all of them at the end.
Okay, so we'll just do motions but not accept. So can I get a motion to categorize item 4DI, which is titled TPMG Oculofacial and Reconstructive Surgery Cosmetic Service, as ocular disease for its category?
I move to categorize topic 4DI as ocular disease.
Second that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second, and we'll come back and take a vote at the end on that.
I would take
So
a vote now and do. I would take a vote now on that motion, and then we can finalize everything at the end.
Perfect. So I'm going to now take a vote. Oh, do I need to open for public comment?
Public comment.
Yep.
I have Mr. Pruden. Do you have anybody in the room? Do you have anyone from the public with you for public comment?
Your prudent executive officer, I am at the publicly noticed location. As noted in the agenda for today's meeting, there are no members of the public where I am.
Perfect. And Mr. Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for public comment.
We are open for public comment on the motion for 4DI, D as in Delta. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're just going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. So we're going to go ahead with the vote now. Dr. Bragg? Dr. Garcia?
Aye.
And Dr. Wong, aye. Motion passes. So the next item up for discussion per Dr. Garcia is item number 4B as in boy 4. Topics on myopia, risk factors, prediction, and low dose atropine treatment. Dr. Garcia, do you want to?
Yeah, I would like to move to accept that CE, but reclassify it as general optometry.
All right, so I wanted to have a discussion about that. Hold on, I gotta close the window. I'm so sorry. So I wanted to have a discussion about that because currently it was submitted under the category of ocular disease. And I've had conversations with other people who feel that myopia is a disease. And so I think it would be a good idea for us to have a discussion about this because going forward, we are definitely going to have more continuing education courses on myopia control. So I believe the current belief is that myopia or myopia control comes under general, but they do talk about how myopia, if you have high myopia, it can lead to, significant ocular problems like retinal detachments. And then there's also the use of therapeutics, both which are low dose atropine. And then if you think about it, contact lenses are also by prescription only. So I thought it would be good for us to have a discussion on this to see if we want to continue myopia treatment as a general, or if we want to consider putting it under the category of ocular disease.
That's actually what I was thinking as well, because there is a ICD-10 diagnosis for myopia. So under that category, it is an ocular disease, and it does have higher risks associated with it. And as myopia management that grows, there's going to be more CE. So I think having a set standard that we use, I think, so we don't have to have a conversation every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dr. Garcia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be argued either way, but I still think because it has a code doesn't necessarily make it a disease. Presbyopia, astigmatism, a lot of codes we use don't necessarily classify themselves necessarily as a disease process. I still think in general it's still a general optometry category. I mean, a lot of things that are kind of even like post-op cataract is under general optometry, not under surgery. And unless we start when we do align more with COPE, that may change a little bit. But I think historically the way we classify this would be more general optometry.
Yeah, I've had different discussions, and so I think I can be swayed one way or the other. Because right now, the discussions I was having yesterday, they do talk about myopia. Everyone is recognizing myopia as the implications of myopia, especially high myopia, as having significant factors in health. And the higher the myopia, as we all know, it can cause significant problems in patients as their myopia increases. So then in that regards, it's more of a disease than just a refractive error kind of issue. And then there is now like the newer treatments, both with therapeutics, low dose atropine, and then the use of the contact lenses. So
if we had a presentation on my site and they were talking about the use of contact lenses to mitigate the progression of myopia, would that be general optometry or would that be ocular disease?
Right. So so that's sort of like my dilemma, because if you looked at this current presentation by Dr. Carla Zadnik, she talked about, atropine, she talks about contact lenses, but she also goes into about how myopia and then the dangers of having high myopia, the retinal detachments and the effects on people as the myopia progression increases. And then in that sort of regards, to me, it seemed a little bit more along the disease line. Versus if we do my site, I mean, technically contact lenses are something that we do dispense. So it's not as if it's an over-the-counter kind of treatment. So that's why I wanted to have a discussion. I'm still on the fence.
I would, if I may, just add, this is perhaps to Dr. Bragg's point earlier in the public comment item, why this committee has previously talked about moving more toward ARBO COPE alignment. You all are the experts and it's the committee's purview here. I think what we have tended to see, and again, this is just perhaps more anecdote than anything else, but I think what we have tended to see is that myopia would more often with ARBO fall into the general optometry category and or the contact lens category, depending on the specifics there. I'm not sure if we see a whole lot of myopia specific CE courses that have the ocular disease classification. But of course that could change. And as you all are talking about, these are hard questions to answer. But just if that's helpful, I think that's what we have tended to see is that myopia has tended to fall in the GO side and or the CL side.
Thank you. All right. So, I don't know. You guys want to just keep it under general? We can we can have further discussions about maybe transitioning from general to ocular disease in the future, especially as we maybe more closely align ourselves with the COPE classifications.
Yeah, I would be okay with that. Again, I could be I could take the arguments either way, but I think as it's historically has been, it would still be
Under
myopia.
general.
But
Dr. Bragg, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking looking at the number of slides where is more of the focus on the disease and the manifestation versus the treatment options, or I guess that would be more the focus. It's hard because it really could go either way.
Right. So I have, sorry, I just pulled it up right now. So looking at the slides, I would say the majority of them do talk more about refractive error and then influences on like the progression of myopia. And there's not really that much talk about subsequent, I guess, disease secondary to high myopia, nor is there, there's only a few slides on atropine. So I think if we were just looking at percentage, I don't know how long she spoke on each one of these slides, but if we're just looking at percentage based on material presented in the PowerPoint, then there's just a few slides that have to do with actually with like therapeutics, atropine, and any kind of disease. So if we're going to go based on that, then let's go ahead and categorize this as general optometry, and then maybe we can have a little bit more discussion about myopia as a disease once we start recategorizing or trying to realign ourselves more with the COPE classifications. Would that work okay with you guys? Yeah.
yes,
Okay. All right. So then I need a motion actually from someone to change the categorization. Can't talk today on item 4B as in boy 4 topics on myopia, risk factors, prediction, and low dose atropine treatment. Change it from ocular disease to general optometry.
Hold on. We currently still have the original motion from Member Garcia on the table. So if Member Garcia would like to withdraw his motion, then you can restate that and go from there.
okay, I will withdraw my original motion.
Okay, so Dr. Garcia has withdrawn his motion, and then I am now submitting, or I would like for somebody to submit a motion changing the categorization for item 4B4, topics on myopia, risk factors, prediction, and low dose atropine treatment, changing the categorization from ocular disease to general optometry.
Council, before we entertain that motion, now that we have a withdrawal of the original motion, the subsequent motion may account for both items. Is that correct?
Can you clarify your question again?
So we had an original motion on, and I'm going to forget exactly what item it was. It was 4D something. 41.
42.
Now we had an original motion on 4D
1.
41. Okay, we had an original motion on 41 that's now been withdrawn. We didn't vote on that motion.
I thought we voted on 41 already, so that motion is concluded.
Yeah, so originally Dr. Garcia had another motion for the same item we just been discussed. So we had a motion and we voted and passed the motion for 4D1.
Okay.
But originally in at the very beginning of our conversation, Dr. Garcia had also said he wanted to have a discussion about item 4B4, which is what we've been talking about. It has to do with
in connection with it. So he withdrew that motion, so we can
Understood. I was mistaken. I apologize.
Yeah, I appreciate you double checking that.
All right, so now we're currently on our second motion that I'd like for someone to propose to change the categorization of 4B4 from ocular disease to general optometry. Can I get a motion?
I move to change the categorization of item 4B4 from ocular disease to general optometry.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Perfect. So now I think we need public comment. Mr. Pruden, is anyone in the room with you?
Is no members of the public located where I am, which is at the publicly accessible location noticed in the agenda.
And Mr. Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for our public comment, please.
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion for 4B4, that's 4 Bravo 4, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Now we are just going to do a vote. For the motion for 4B4, Dr. Bragg, how do you vote? Dr. Garcia?
Aye.
Dr. Wong, I vote aye. So our motion passes. Now I would like to have another motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Bragg and Dr. Garcia, do you guys have any comments about any other items that are currently under item number 4?
None for myself.
I do not.
So then going forward now, I'd like to have a motion to approve all items in 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D with the exclusion of item 4B4 and item 4D1 since we've already addressed that.
I think we actually need to still approve those. I think we just reclassified them according to the
Oh, okay.
So also I would say something along the lines of approve all of them, including the reclassifications discussed today.
Perfect. All
Does
right.
that seem straightforward to you?
That sounds perfect. So if I could get a motion to pass items in 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D, including the items as discussed that were reclassified.
I move to approve the items 4A, B, C, and D, along with the items that we reclassified.
I second that motion.
Mr. Pruden, do you have anyone in the room with you now for public comment?
There are no members of the public located at the location where I am, which is at the publicly accessible location noted in the agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, if you can open up the Q&A for public comment, please.
We are accepting public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a public comment on any of the items listed in agenda item 4, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. So now I'm just going to do a roll call vote. Dr. Bragg, how do you vote? Dr. Garcia?
I vote aye.
And Dr. Wong, I vote aye. So motion passes. We will now move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is adjournment. Thank you, everybody, for your time and effort for our meeting today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Yes, thank you, staff.
See some of you in a half hour.
Yeah, so do we just stay on? This is the same link, is that correct?
You can log off and come back.
Okay,
Same
all
link.
right.
It's the same WebEx link for all the meetings today.
All right, I'm just gonna stay on since I'm already on. I'm just gonna mute myself and stop my video, and I
There you
will
go.
see you guys in a half an hour.
Sounds good.
Thank you.